afición de la lucha libre. Este que les habla es Michael Morales Torres, integrante del equipo de lucha libre online. Y tenemos el enorme privilegio de presentarles a nuestro invitado en la tarde de hoy de Georgia para el mundo, representando a Impact Wrestling, UFC Hall of Famer, Impact Wrestling Hall of Famer, the world's most dangerous man, ladies and gentlemen, Ken Shamrock. Mr. Shamrock, it is a huge honor to have you here. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us today. Mr. Shamrock, let's talk about your Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame induction by none other than The Rock. You're the first man in the history of pro wrestling being inducted into both an MMA Hall of Fame, UFC Hall of Famer, and into Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Impact Wrestling Hall of Famer. How do you feel at that moment being inducted by none other than the People's Champion, The Rock?
Yeah, it was awesome. You know I developed a lot of relationships with people when I was in the WWF and along with Mick Foley and Bret Hart, of course The Rock and many others, even The Undertaker and Stone Cold. There's just a lot of them, and so the ones that were actually there, that were aired, that gave those inductions, it was awesome. It made me feel very grateful to be able to have developed those relationships I had with all those guys there, and that they would take the time out to do that for me, knowing that I know my schedule's busy. So when someone would ask me, I know what the time that it takes to be able to push something aside, or to be able, even if it's that little of a moment, being where I'm at, I know where they're at, and I know that it's not something that they could just do because there's so much going on. So for them to do that, it was really appreciated, and it made me feel good that they treasured the relationship that we have developed during that time also. So it was really, I felt very, very grateful.
Ken has been working with former Impact Wrestling champion Sami Callihan. You guys work great together. He addresses you as his best friend. And definitely on camera, you guys are incredible together. But so far, behind camera, how's your relationship with Sami?
Sami is an acquired taste. He's cocky. He loves himself. He says things to just literally hurt people, but when he says those things, he always takes something that is true. He doesn't take something and say something that's a lie to hurt somebody. He takes something that literally he sees in somebody, in their character or their style or their personality, whatever it is, and he attacks that, and it's true, right? But he's using it as a weapon. So it was hard for me in the beginning because I just wanted to keep beating him down. But every time he was saying something, it hit close to home because I knew it was true. I knew the mistakes that I made or the things that I did, even though he's saying it was my fault, I cost him this, I cost him that. The actual thing he was saying and what I did was true. And so it took me a while to just peel through all of that other stuff and literally just pay attention to what he's saying. And then I'm going to get benefits from that and not take things personal. And I think that that's what it took, was to just stop listening to the attitude and the cockiness and all that stuff, and to listen to the words and the things that are being said, and then try to evaluate it from there. But at the same time, I think that he's learning from me too, just through my actions and the way that I act and the way that I treat other people and the way that I approach things. I think underlying with that, I think he's also learning from me. So I think we're really basically taking from one another, and we're basically putting something together that I think that's unstoppable. But I know this, like, we're in a very competitive organization, and that sometime or another, our paths will cross in the ring again.
So let's talk about that point you just touched. Impact Wrestling has an incredible roster right now with veterans, young veterans, and rookies, basically, because there's an incredible mix. There are guys that are experienced and not that experienced. You're basically the most experienced guy in that roster. There are a lot of guys over there. How's been your relationship as a mentor with the rest of the Impact roster so far?
Yeah, when I came in, I wasn't trying to be a mentor. I came in because I was still trying to find that world's most dangerous man. I was still trying to find who I was, because I had come back and and I was wrestling in different places, and then I got to Impact and got a shot with Moose, but I knew that I just hadn't got my feet grounded yet. I knew I wasn't where I needed to be yet. And I was glad and very fortunate that Impact gave me an opportunity to stick around so that I was able to develop that character and find that character that made me so famous in pro wrestling, which was the world's most dangerous man. And I've been able to do that each and every time, get closer to that guy by wrestling and doing different things. And I think I'm there. I'm not all the way there yet, but I'm there. And I think that's something that's going to be so special. I think I got so much more to give, because I feel like I'm growing every single time and developing that character and then that fighting style within the ring. And that I just hope I don't cross the line, because, I come from the world of MMA and no holds barred. And that's the character that I'm trying to develop, a guy that goes in there, doesn't care what anybody else thinks, and I don't make friends with anybody that's across the ring from me, and that my only desire is to make sure that when they walk out, if they have the opportunity to walk out, that they never forget who they were in the ring with. So I'm going to go in and put a beating on Rich Swann. I'm going to beat him silly, and I hope that he doesn't retire after this. So like I said, it's nothing personal.
Let's talk about the creative process on Impact Wrestling, the backstage area. I've heard wonders from multiple Impact Wrestling talents about the creative process, Scott D'Amore, and the working environment, basically. How's been Ken Shamrock's experience regarding the creative process of Impact Wrestling so far?
Yeah, it's been very interesting, because you got so much stuff going on that if you're not focused on what you're doing, then you're going to miss something that you're involved with. But because there's so much going on outside of what you're doing, it's hard not to pay attention to it. Like, the wrestler's court, there's just so many different things. And the creative writing in this it reminds me of the Attitude Era, when there were so many different writers and there's so many different things going on, that it just seemed like nobody's angle was more important than anybody else's, because there was so many other things going on that you got this smorgasbord of storylines, and so that nobody gets bored of watching the same thing over again, because it's a different movie for each person. And so it's been very creative, and I thought very, very intelligent writing, in my opinion.
Awesome. So I'm going to say something in Spanish for all fans out there. Impact Wrestling tiene su pay-per-view Final Resolution el 12 de diciembre, sábado 12 de diciembre, disponible en Impact Plus. Y posterior a eso, el próximo compromiso es Hard to Kill, el 16 de enero, disponible en pay-per-view en todo el mundo. Hard to Kill, y en Fight TV, en Dish Network, en donde quiera que usted tenga servicio de pay-per-view. Esto es lo que tienen que conseguir. Dos excelentes eventos que no se pueden perder. Mercancía disponible en shopimpact.com, shopimpact.com, para toda la mercancía, y de igual manera la mercancía de Ken Shamrock está disponible en kenshamrock.com. Ahí tienen camisas, tienen fotos autografiadas, tienen de todo, y tienen que escuchar su podcast, muy importante. Disculpen un momentito, sí, es el podcast de Ken Shamrock, que está disponible ahora mismo en todas las plataformas. Está disponible en Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts y iHeartRadio como The World's Most Dangerous Podcast con Ken Shamrock. Y lo más importante, en sus redes sociales, Twitter como @ShamrockKen, Instagram como @KenShamrockOfficial, YouTube Ken Shamrock y Facebook Ken Shamrock de igual manera. Mr. Shamrock, last but not least, Latin America is a really passionate crowd regarding pro wrestling. You've been in this industry for a while, both in wrestling and combat sports. Do you have any specific memory regarding either wrestling or fighting in Latin America, and which countries you visited before?
Say that? I didn't get that.
So let's talk about Latin America in general. You've been wrestling and combat sports, both of them, all over the world. You've been to Latin America before. Do you have a memory or a special treasure that you remember while visiting any country in Latin America, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Chile, or any other country you competed before?
Yeah, I would say Puerto Rico. I was there and I'd actually fought Kimbo. It was It was actually the first time I fought him.
Oh wow!
And it was in a chicken cockfight arena. What do they call those things? It was like this
Gallera, we call it in Spanish. Gallera.
Yeah, so we were all in this building, and it was 100 degrees humidity.
Wow.
It was like unbelievable. There was no air conditioning in this place, and it was a huge arena, right? And so when we went in to fight, it was like we were warming up and we were already sweating. And I remember when I went in to do the fight, I felt like, wait a minute, I had to buy these long tube socks that went up to my knees, and then my knee pads on, or those sleeves that I had on, that I put those on, because it would absorb the sweat like a gi does, right? And so I put those long socks on so that when I went for a leg lock, that it would absorb the sweat and it wouldn't be so slippery for me to be able to get a knee bar on him, because we were going to be so sweaty before the match ever started. And so when I went in and did that fight, man, people thought it was funny because I came out with these red Speedo trunks on and then these long white tube socks up to my knees with these red sleeves pulled over my knees. And everybody was like, why are you wearing those? Like, I wouldn't tell nobody until after the fact. And they all did their fight. They were like, man, I would have wore something because it was so slippery. It was so wet because there was no air conditioning in that building. And the humidity was just tremendously hot. And we were sweating before we ever walked into the ring into a completely dripped down sweat. So it was the funniest thing when I watched it because it looked so dorky wearing them, but I ended up getting the leg lock because of those socks.
So Puerto Rico and this humidity, I'm Puerto Rican. I know it can be hell, even in summer, even in winter. It's difficult weather. So Mr. Shamrock, thank you so much for your time. We wish you the best of luck, and let's hope next time we speak, we can speak to you with the Impact Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.